Hi, everybody. I am Ben Edmunds of Breakside Brewery, and this is a bonus episode of the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer. My guest is Jake Gardner of Westbound and Down, and he is here for a conversation that goes beyond the brewhouse and into topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. First, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at allaboutbeer. And to support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. We'll get into the conversation in just a moment, but first, this message.
This episode is sponsored by John I. Haas on their new LupoCore Enhanced T90 hop pellets, engineered for peak sensory performance and ultimate peace of mind. Designed for brewers of all sizes, LupoCore delivers consistent sensory outcomes, reliable brewhouse performance, and scalable application across production volumes. Using Sensory Plus selected hops and Haas's advanced pellet processing technology, LupoCore elevates hop expression while reducing brew process loss, all without requiring brewers to change their process. Contact your Haas Sales Representative or visit lupohops.com to learn more.
Today's episode is brought to you by StompStickers.com, trusted by thousands of breweries across the country. They've been printing for over 30 years, and they know beer branding inside and out. Whether you need beer labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, or more, they've got the expertise you need, all backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Try your first run with StompStickers.com and get 15% off with code TRY15. That's TRY15 by visiting StompStickers.com. You're paying too much to process your invoices. Look, it's not your fault. It's just because you're not using PaySmart yet. Most breweries are stuck with platforms designed for general small businesses, not the craft industry. That's why PaySmart was built. It's the new payment solution that is fully integrated into leading brewery software like Ecos and Ollie. That means less time chasing payments, fewer workarounds, and more money saved. Want to see how much you can save? Head over to save.withpaysmart.com to learn more and to claim an incredible launch offer. That's save.withpaysmart.com.
If you were at CBC in Philadelphia, hopefully you stopped by the Senos booth or ran into them at their sponsored events around Philly. For everyone who missed it, Senos announced their latest hardware innovations. Senos is the world's first complete solution for data-driven fermentation management. Real-time, predictive insights directly from your tanks, within reach for every brewery. Catch issues early, save batches, and grow your margins. Brew smarter at Senos.com. That's SENNOS.com.
Welcome. And I'm very pleased to have Jake Gardner as my guest today. Jake Gardner is the founder, director of brewing ops, and CEO of Westbound and Down Brewing Company in Colorado. He's been brewing since 2011, has worked for Breckenridge Brewery, Cicerone, and Hogshead Brewery before starting Westbound and Down 10 years ago. The brewery focuses on a wide variety of beer styles, but are most well known for their hoppy beers. Westbound and Down entered its first GABF in 2017 and got skunked both that year and the year after. But since 2019, they've won 18 GABF medals and won Brewery of the Year in 2019 and 2025, including seven medals last GABF, dunking on the entire world of beer. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. That's a hell of an intro.
So, the conceit of this show is a little bit different than other brewing podcasts, where a lot of the topics that we're going to get into really are less about technical brewing, though we can talk about technical brewing too if you want to get into IPA and stuff like that. But it's, I think, about the kind of more the intellectual and the aesthetic and the philosophical side of brewing. So many of these shows begin where people tell their beer bio. I want to hear your non-beer bio. I want to hear about the Jake Gardner, the life of Jake Gardner, but tell it to me with zero references to beer.
That's tough. Just make one reference to beer in case there's a bunch of gaps. Beer is the only job I've worked since college. I framed houses and then have worked in beer. So life before beer, I loved school, was pretty intellectual kid, always an honor roll kid, but got in an insane amount of trouble. I was arrested an insane amount of times in high school. And now I have 2 kids and a wonderful wife, 2 and a 4-year-old. Just spending time with my family in Richmond, and my mom's laughing at the fact my 2-year-old boy is a fucking menace and is probably going to be giving me the hell that I certainly gave her for a long time. So, in a nutshell,
Is she
I'd
giving
say,
you any tips?
buckle up. So, that I love fly fishing, spending time outdoors, snowboarding. But yeah, beer's been a big part of my life. I grew up in a construction family, framed a lot of houses, did a lot of roofing. Anytime I was getting in a lot of trouble, the punishment was always roofing in Virginia, because in the summer that's a hell of a job. So yeah, it's kind of it.
Talk about what you studied in school, because I think that's kind of an interesting part of your background that maybe people would not guess.
Yeah, I studied English and philosophy at CU Boulder. Took some biochem and chemistry because I was really into homebrewing, but did not think I was going to be a professional brewer.
How does your degree in English help you as a brewer? And I get asked that sometimes. Like, I have a degree in comparative literature and Spanish, and I get asked sometimes. I think people are trying to, get a rise out of me, but I actually think that it's hugely helpful to me. So how are ways that what you learned in that kind of academic field useful to you now?
Yeah, I think studying literature in school really taught me a lot about learning how to read well, how to decipher what matters, how to kind of ignore things that were insignificant to at least what you were working on in a paper. And I think the same applies here. I think brewers, there's only been so much data points you can focus on at a brewery, right? Like, there's a certain amount of, like, if you think of your brain as like having a max computing power, there's a limitation to what you can process, and choosing what matters to focus on and what data sets don't matter, I think largely distinguishes the better brewers from the less better brewers. And I think, reading, literary criticism, I think the same applies.
Is there when you think back on it, is there a school of lit crit or a particular article or essay that you think is especially informative and useful? If you could have someone, make all your brewers read one thing that was completely unrelated to beer that's in that vein, what would it be? So
I was a big John Baudrillard fan. And
Simulacrum, right?
Simulacrum, the Hyperreal. I like Foucault, so obviously Forget About Foucault was pretty mind-blowing writing of his. But, the idea that we're living in a society where there is no original copy, it's just a copy of a copy, I think was pretty freeing for me, and I think speaks to how I approach beer in the way that before that it was like, well, I need to invent something, some novel taste, and then I've since spent the majority of my career considering myself zero with that. Luckily, I have Alex Bakken, who's got our original ideas, and I get to just try to hone in what we're doing and be okay with the fact that, like, Westbound might just be really good at copying other people's stuff, but that doesn't matter because they were just copying someone else also.
That was not one that I had on my bingo card that you might say for that question, because I find myself thinking a lot about Stanley Fish and the idea of interpretive communities. That's probably the one that sticks with me the most. I think that's a good way to start to understand, say, how East Coast drinkers, beer consumers versus West Coast versus Colorado beer consumers might come to different estimations and conclusions entirely, even though they're all drinking the same liquid, right? Or I guess you could, there's some other ones that kind of feed into that, but that basically we all exist in these kind of siloed interpretive communities, and that's pretty much how we start to create meaning. What is, in that vein then, what's one thing here we're in the East Coast, what's one thing about Colorado beer that, well, actually I'll ask this one first. What's one thing you wish you understood better about East Coast brewing and beers?
That's a hard question here on the East Coast. I don't understand why their attempts at West Coast IPA taste like this.
The info's out there, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I'm from Richmond, Virginia. I was just in Richmond, so I've been on kind of an East Coast trip. There's a lot of great beer. Clear hoppy beer is not what I've been choosing, and I don't understand why. So I'll go with that.
If anyone in the audience is a native East Coaster and has a hot take on why East Coast, West Coast IPA tastes so different than West Coast IPA, I would like to know that too. I think that's good.
Sorry to be offensive.
No, I think that we're trying to get a little rise out here. Otherwise, there's no excitement in the day. Fear of bitterness. Interesting.
You don't have to be that bitter for the record.
So, what about Colorado drinkers? What's one thing that you feel like other people looking into Colorado? What's one thing that other brewers from outside the state don't understand about your brewing community and your consumer market?
I think, well, first off, Colorado, I'm very grateful. Colorado's great brewing history poured a ton into beer education, and I think you walk down the aisle at any beer store, and the average person you bump into has a pretty sophisticated understanding of craft beer, and I think that's really cool. I'd say the same is true from when I visited San Diego and Greater Portland, so that alone is not unique to Colorado. But I think there's this other factor where Coloradans then have had a higher degree of brand loyalty than I've seen in the other two locations I mentioned. So I think there's this dynamic of a lot of, you can bump into, older dads and dad hats and yoga moms and just, common people, right? And I'll be wearing not all Westbound gear and ask, like, what are you looking for? Make conversation like I don't know what I'm looking for. And people will say, I really like Mosaic hops and I don't like Citra. Like very sophisticated answers for just, a Whole Foods, bumping. So I think I'd say that, but I do think there's this degree of brand loyalty, and I'm really interested to see with all the consolidation in Colorado, and I know that's more of a national trend as well, how that plays out, though, with the high degree of brand loyalty. Whether it was Avery Brewing back in the day, I went to school in Boulder. Avery they were the gods, right? And I feel like we all felt that way for a really long time. So I was part of that culture. So I think that is unique, is how long people hold on to brands, maybe longer than they deserve.
Is that informing how you guys are kind of going about your marketing plan, your growth right now?
You'd have to ask Eric about that. we're
building loyalty.
Yeah, we're just trying to make dope IPA and hope people drink it.
It is really interesting, and you and I have talked about this before, the fact that, back circa 15, 20 years ago particularly, the Front Range of Colorado is just a murderer's row of awesome regional breweries who are doing amazing, innovative, boundary-pushing things. A lot of those breweries are still open, but a lot of them have consolidated now. It's kind of for the first time in 20 years, like a little bit more of a blue water marketplace in Colorado, at least from the outsider's point of view. Do you think that is that accurate, do you think?
I do. Long live Odell, so hats off to them. But yeah, it's I think that's contributed a lot to Westbound's success. I think we're making great beer, but I think, we've been able to inherit some brand loyalty that was hard to win because of, consolidation, the choices of other brands. Yeah.
It's not like it's been the bottom hasn't fallen out for the Colorado consumer, right? It's that some of those brands who had to, got over their ski tips did so because of expansion outside of the state.
Correct.
Yeah,
and in we'll see, the BA just came out with all their numbers, but in 2024, Coloradans only drank 1.8% less beer in 2024. So it's not, the sky is falling thing, which I think is way overblown in beer and craft beer in general, is, at least in Colorado, is not adding up.
Is there anything that you see happening successfully elsewhere in the country that is not taking in Colorado that you wish would take hold?
Broadly, or on the topic we were just on?
In terms of beer, like beer, style or,
Beer style, I'd say the one I'm jealous on is West Coast Pils. Like, we, I think, make a very good West Coast Pilsner. Certainly won 2 medals for it. It sells well to a narrow audience, but I think, I mentioned this to you before. I'm very jealous, very jealous of these bigger areas. Like Colorado is an awesome state, but it's just spread out. So finding people who, in a Venn diagram, know enough to understand what West Coast Pils means, are willing to pay more money than Pilsner normally costs. Understand, it's just a too small a Venn diagram, and then
even within a sophisticated
even
consumer
within,
base.
Yeah, I think it's just a population density issue, because then you go to San Diego and it's just like they're gobbling it up. But then you look at it and it's like in North County they have as many people, it feels like, as our whole state.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's 90, 120 barrel batches can make sense where 30 barrel batches make sense for us.
Sure. What about non-style related things? Because you've sort of hinted there might be something there.
No, I'd say other than that, I'm pretty grateful for Colorado's craft beer.
They're great. Don't change a thing other than drink more West Coast Pils.
Yeah, well, I feel like there's this dichotomy, right, where people are saying, more moderation, alcohol's bad, blah, blah, blah. Yet session IPA and West Coast Pils are like the damn hardest things to sell. And I'm like, what is true? It's like we're supposed to drink less or something, but we can't sell you the thing that's hoppy and has less alcohol. It feels like this shit should just work, and it's just not. So that's frustrating, because it feels like it should be the antidote to the problem, and it isn't.
Yeah, I think that, from my perspective on Oregon stuff that's kind of in that vein, is that I think sometimes we try and conflate consumer trends into one single consumer, right? When in reality, like, we all in our businesses have multiple demos of consumers. So the person who's buying the 19.2 high gravity double IPA does not care about moderation trends, obviously, right? Or only, maybe pays lip service to it. And that, it's not like some day of the week they come in and say, oh, I'm going to actually just moderate now by drinking West Coast Pils.
Yeah, totally. I also think sometimes the same individual person is all these different consumers at the same time, right? Like, I think about myself. I'm going here straight to a family wedding in the Dominican Republic, and next week I'm going to be like this moderation guy because I'm going to hammer my liver for the next 7 days.
Yeah.
And then you come off and you're like, oh, yeah, I should drink like an NA beer for the first time in a long time, and, I'm going to drink session IPA. So I think sometimes, too, we like try to act like there's one trend, when in reality, like, a actual regular at your bar can be like 6 different demographics. So it's just, there's a lot of multiplicity to it at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about, like, actually, I want to ask you some brewmaster questions. I'm going to kind of change modes here, away from like some style stuff. But what do you think? What's something about your role, particularly in a growing brewery, that people don't see or quite get? Either your staff or your customers, or even the rest of the industry, or the rest of the industry, other than people who are kind of in the exact same situation.
Yeah, that's a tough question. So I'll preface with my kind of superpower is I think I don't really care what other people think about me. But by the same token, my weakness is I'm not sure I know how to answer the question because I don't really consider it very much.
Sure.
But I guess in an attempt to, I think in any growing business, there just becomes like literally just keeping the brewery running. I have incredible staff. Derek, Alex, Eric, and leadership all just kill it, and it would be impossible without them. But even beyond that, too, it's just like, insurance gets complicated, and for individuals, but also like, the insurance for the equipment and there's just, routine maintenance projects. Like everything just gets bigger. When it's all in one room, you just kind of look at it and fix it. And then it becomes kind of ethereal and very, all over the place. But, that is what I'm talking about. That is a sweet woman right there. I just got a beer delivery from a very good friend.
Yes. Oh.
That's all I got. I'm also ADD as hell, so the beer, I don't remember what I was talking about.
Well, let me rephrase the question a little bit then in a different way, because I think this is, what's something that people ask you that you wish people asked you about more?
Oh, well, that feels like a different question, but I'll take it. I'd say my team. I think craft beer went through this old phase where there were like people who were in charge and they were like famous. We all know like Sam Calgione or something. Like there was these like rock star brewer people. Sure. And it really takes an army. Like we've had incredible people come through Westbound. I've been making beer with Alex for 13 years. I think his raw talent is pretty unmatched. We wouldn't be doing half the cool shit we're currently doing without him. I mean, Derek Goodman runs teams, figures out how to get stuff done. Really is a beacon of joy in the brewery, and we've really keyed in on that. Like people being happy make great beer. Like the vibes matter. In the execution of pretty delicate beers that take a lot of focus. Eric Schmidt, same deal. I mean, he makes me look good all the time. I wish he was out here because I'd probably sound better on this podcast if he was.
He would have made you look at the questions an hour or so earlier.
Yeah, he would have told me there was an email with questions that I didn't read. I think we've got an amazing team, and I feel like I think in general that's sometimes overlooked, but I hope that's not the case at Westbound because I think we've got one of the best in the business.
Is there a flip side? Is there something you get asked about a lot or have to talk about a lot that you find annoying or just unnecessary?
Yeah, I mean, I think just generally this craft beer isn't doing well thing, I think I get it. It's not going well for everybody, but if you look at like pre-COVID and post-COVID numbers, people are drinking more craft beer in that period of time, and people drank like the world was ending in the middle, so of course the numbers are skewed, and we're letting that, and I'm not saying it isn't hard for people. Like individual breweries are not doing well, and I'm not trying to belittle that at all, but as a overall theme that everybody has to talk about, and I understand like we've grown a lot and we've been raising a lot of money somewhat publicly, publicly, and that brings on those questions, but nonstop it's like, well, yeah, this looks great, but craft beer is not doing well. And I'm like, well, I could tell you 50 success stories all across the country like that are going great. So I think that is something that all of us collectively in craft beer need to figure out is like, how do we tell a different narrative around the success stories, but also around this like alcohol's bad for you. And I'm like, people drank more alcohol 50 years ago than they did now, and they lived longer and no one blamed it. So it's just like we need to find new narratives, and I'm not going to be the guy that does that. We need more Erics to figure that out. But I feel like that's the thing. We got to figure out how to talk about it differently, and I'm tired of talking about it the same way.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it becomes kind of this crutch conversation, I think, both socially and in these kind of like professional discourses, right, where we're ending up sitting on a panel, and it's like you almost you feel kind of this obligation to talk about, oh yeah, well, the headwinds, or the market is doing this, or it's a little bit challenging out there. It's like this qualifier and caveat that has to get added, and in some ways, I think it's not that it's not true, it's not that it's not correct. See, I'm even qualifying that right now, but it's tiresome to have to kind of always caveat and always preface everything with that sentiment, right? When you want to be talking about, just get to the meat of the matter, right?
Yeah, and there's still like a lot of excitement and a lot of great stories and a lot of people that are doing really exciting stuff. So I just, I think craft beer when it was booming was amazing at telling its proud stories, and I think we got to remember how we did that. Mainly so I can stop being tired about doing the opposite.
All right, we are going to take a short break for this message and then come right back for more of this conversation with Jake Gardner of Westbound and Down.
This episode is sponsored by John I. Haas on their new LupoCore Enhanced T90 hop pellets, engineered for peak sensory performance and ultimate peace of mind. Designed for brewers of all sizes, LupoCore delivers consistent sensory outcomes, reliable brewhouse performance, and scalable application across production volumes. Using Sensory Plus selected hops and Haas's advanced pellet processing technology, LupoCore elevates hop expression while reducing brew process loss, all without requiring brewers to change their process. Contact your Haas Sales Representative or visit lupohops.com to learn more.
Today's episode is brought to you by stompstickers.com, trusted by thousands of breweries across the country. They've been printing for over 30 years, and they know beer branding inside and out. Whether you need beer labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, or more, they've got the expertise you need, all backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Try your first run with stompstickers.com and get 15% off with code TRY15. That's TRY15 by visiting stompstickers.com. You're paying too much to process your invoices. Look, it's not your fault. It's just because you're not using PaySmart yet. Most breweries are stuck with platforms designed for general small businesses, not the craft industry. That's why PaySmart was built. It's the new payment solution that is fully integrated into leading brewery software like Ecos and Ollie. That means less time chasing payments, fewer workarounds, and more money saved. Want to see how much you can save? Head over to save.withpaysmart.com to learn more and to claim an incredible launch offer. That's save.withpaysmart.com.
If you were at CBC in Philadelphia, hopefully you stopped by the Senos booth or ran into them at their sponsored events around Philly. For everyone who missed it, Senos announced their latest hardware innovations. Senos is the world's first complete solution for data-driven fermentation management. Real-time, predictive insights directly from your tanks, within reach for every brewery. Catch issues early, save batches, and grow your margins. Brew smarter at senos.com. That's SENNOS.com.
All right, welcome back, Jake. I want to start asking you about some of your beers and talk a little bit about kind of how you view your career trajectory. You know, Craft Beer and Brewing does their Pick Six. That's become a popular thing. Like when you think about the beers that kind of really informed you or educated. But what about your own beers? If you had to narrate your own career in 3 to 6 beers, what would those beers be?
All right, that's a good one. So I took over as the head brewer at Hogshead Brewery in Denver when I was 24.
Yeah.
So I would start with Chinwag ESB. We made a shit ton of that beer, or what felt like that at the time. We were burning it, every other week. And so, it was pale. It had hops in it. I wouldn't say the beer really reflects much of what we do, but or that we at Westbound do. But Steve Kirby, the owner there at the time, really influential in my life, and Alex Bockins as well. And I'd say that would be kind of point number one, just for the sheer fact of the amount of turns of it, and then kind of like a high level of focus on water chemistry, which I think has played a big role at Westbound. Like Burtonized water, pretty extreme water profile.
Are there things specifically about Chinwag that you see compared to just, say, the whole portfolio at Hogshead that were particular that make it so important?
I mean, mainly it was a pretty damn bitter beer with a massive sulfate to chloride ratio.
What? How high are we talking?
Like 6 to 1.
Okay.
And so, it taught me as much about what I like as it taught me about things I don't like, but it was just pretty influential in how I thought about water and bitterness from there forward. I'd say next I'd go with Edda's Ale, which we actually just rebrewed after my dog just passed away, and we originally brewed it for right at the beginning of my career. I got engaged and we got this dog.
This was at Hogshead
At
still?
Hogshead.
Okay.
It was a Hogshead beer we just rebrewed at Westbound. But it was really the beginning of Alex and I's foray into West Coast IPA. Like, the term didn't really exist, at least in Colorado, and we were just Steve would go on these trips to Australia and England for like 4 months, and we would just, trade beer, like bar tabs with the Coors AC Golden team for cool hops, and then just make 100% Pilsner beers and dry hop them with like Galaxy and Amarillo and, Mosaic and
Did Steve
Citra.
know you were doing it, or was it?
Well, when he came back, there'd be like 4 of them on draft, and he'd be fucking pissed. But then they were selling well, so we just kind of got away with it. He was pissed, but also he just never was going to fire me, so it just kind of kept happening. But that really, I'd say, very important. Like that beer being one of many beers around that time, where, we were making 5% versions, we were making 7% versions, we were, lower IBUs. We were really, going to San Diego, drinking some beer, and with really no connections to anyone there who was making world-class beer, just attempting to replicate it. I'd say next I go with Westbound Double IPA. We still make that beer. I think we've got an awesome entry tomorrow, so fingers crossed on that.
Was that your first GABF medal?
It was our first hoppy GABF medal, yeah. And so we also won a barley wine medal
that year, yeah.
But I'd put that one on there just because it sold really well in 2018-19, so I was making it way more than we could now. But it was just, an extreme version of really also dialing in West Coast style hoppy beer. And so I think that was important. And then lastly,
is West Coast Double IPA, has that evolved a lot since 2018, 2017, or is it?
Yeah, yes. I mean, we've leaned it out even more, but it never had any crystal malt in it. It had like a bag of Vienna, and now it's got a half bag of Vienna.
Yep.
I think it had like 40% Maris Otter, and now it's got like 10% Maris Otter. But mainly we'll see. It could come back. Galaxy's back, baby. But, it was a Galaxy beer, and then we threw it away, and now we're playing around with it again.
Hops are the same.
No, the hops aren't, because like I said, we had like Vic's Secret. We had a bunch of Australian stuff we stopped trusting.
It's moved into a different lane.
But some of those components are starting to weave their way back in at very minor levels, and they were like dominating.
Yeah.
The beer that won was Mosaic Galaxy.
One of the best smelling hops I rubbed on the floor of CBC today at the expo was an Australian hop. So yeah, I think there is some. It's definitely on a upswing right now.
Yeah. So I'd say that beer, and then lastly, I'd go with Westbound IPA. That beer, I think I really pride myself, as I mentioned, on kind of teamwork and I've said for a while, like I want to be Ben Edmunds when I grow up, and I feel like you've been meticulous on how you systematically improve beer. And I feel like Westbound IPA is our best example of, it was not perfect when we first brewed it, and as a team, collectively, we have trialed a million different things, and I'm really proud of where that beer is, and I think it speaks to who the Westbound team is and what we're all about, both in taste and in kind of process geek strategy.
Do you see those improvements in that beer as kind of like a continuous chip, or is it more like major leaps forward? Or
Both.
Both.
I mean, it depends on the day or the week or the time of the year. But yeah, I think how we that's the one beer where we go select hops like kind of around it the most. We're not have enough scale to select hops around everything. Really, our hazy IPA and Westbound IPA are the main focuses when we go to selection. So I think big steps in the way that we show up at hop selection with new strategies based on what we learned in the past year, and then. But then little steps of, how, I think we've gotten a lot better at dealing with the changes in Colorado's water as you head into kind of shoulder season and the water changes, and how we're going to work with local water plants, and how we're going to be ready to adjust quicker and make the beer better. Mm-hmm. We brew that beer every week, 60 to 90 barrels, occasionally 30.
Yeah.
So, that beer gets a ton of micro adjustments all the time. We usually are drinking 2 to 3 different versions at every Monday tasting. So I'd say that beer at this point is kind of, the beer I'm the most proud of, because it encapsulates, our whole team, what we're about, and how we can systematic, like it represents why I believe Westbound's not making the best beer Westbound will make yet, because I know that beer proves we can get better every day.
Talk about that a little bit more, because I think that the stereotype is that as you get bigger, your quality, you become more stable. Your beer becomes more stable, but maybe the way you define quality is different. You define it on stability rather than necessarily maybe excitement, or the beer gets boring, beer drops in quality as you get bigger. How do you avoid that trap? What are the systems you guys are working on to use the powers of being a growing and bigger brewery to make even better beer?
So when Alex and I talked about this in vague terms, but when Derek interviewed to work at Westbound, he said, beer doesn't need to be consistent, it just needs to be consistently excellent. And I was like, you're hired. And I think we really believe that no one drinks more Westbound IPA than me. And in my head, it's like 4 or 5 bullet points is like the most even a pretty intelligent person drinking a fuck ton of beer can really hold in their head, right? And so long as you hit those boxes, right, it needs to be relatively dry, like firm to very firm bitterness. The beer should be clean and come on and off your palate pretty quickly with that bitterness. I think that we've got a combination of an orange kind of citrus and tropical character. And that, and then like barely any existing malt character, and that's it. Like that's all I know about the beer, and I drink a ton of it. So I think this idea that it just needs to be the same is stupid. And B, we are so excited about growing because I think, growing to this point has allowed us to select more and more of the varieties we use. And I think the next step is us allowing to select multiple lots of the varieties we use and place them in individual beers and have them specific to those beers. So I think it's a cop-out and maybe speaks to ownership groups of what they want or what people think they're capable of, that the beer gets worse. The reality is the resources get better.
Right.
So there's, if your beer gets worse as your brewery gets bigger, you're choosing it. Because so far, I'm of the firm belief, and I've seen some amazing breweries, yours namely, Ghost Town being another one too, that have gotten bigger and the beer is better than it was, specifically in the hoppy beer realm.
Sure.
Obviously, it's a lot of my focus and passion is in that. So I think it's a cop-out and total bullshit when people are like, it does. If I was a consumer, I might have that theory, right? Because you see it, but I'm like, that is people caring about the business more than the beer. And I think that might be part of the downturn in craft beer, right? We need to go back to trusting. In Colorado, I know we have amazing consumers. Trust that they're amazing, value them, make better beer, win them over. That's better business, not, we're going to get to the bottom line faster by making shit beer now and hoping we get away with it. Also, there's easier ways to make money than making shit beer and trying to make money. If I was going to do that, I'd just frame houses. Like, that makes pretty damn good money. My dad is running a great custom housing company, right? That was way easier than what we're doing, right? Microbiology and installing new equipment and trying to figure out, what we're doing is way too complicated to be like, well, what if we just made it shittier and made a little more money real fast? Like, that's I'm not interested in that.
Well, I think bring it back to the roofing and the framing is a good way to bring this back to the beginning and put a coda on this. Jake, tell everyone whatever you want. What do you got going on? What's cooking? What do you want people to know about Westbound if they're listening to this that we haven't talked about so far?
Wow, I didn't know I was getting that question. What do they know about Westbound? Well, hopefully if you're in Colorado, we're up to 4 Westbound and Down locations. We're building a 5th that's right outside Denver. Unfortunately, it will not be ready by next GABF, which I know would be a follow-up question. But certainly the following. So when you come out to visit us, there'll be no excuse not to go to Westbound and Down for the full experience after that. And then on top of that, we have exciting news that I can't announce yet, but for our biggest brewery yet to come. So, I really do believe deep in my heart that the best version of Westbound and Down is ahead of us, and I know I got the right team to keep pushing that forward. So, I'd say that's what I'm excited about.
Thank you, Jake. Good luck tomorrow night. I know I'm going to see you up on stage. You're going to crush it.
A lot of pressure.
You and the whole
I'm not good
Westbound
at World
crew.
Beer Cup.
A reminder, visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media at allaboutbeer. To support journalism in the beer space, check out allaboutbeer.com/support. I'm Ben Edmunds of Breakside Brewery. Thank you for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast.
This episode is sponsored by John I. Haas and the new LupoMAX Enhanced T90 hop pellets, engineered for peak sensory performance and ultimate peace of mind. Designed for brewers of all sizes, LupoMAX delivers consistent sensory outcomes, reliable brewhouse performance, and scalable application across production volumes. Using Sensory Plus selected hops and Haas's advanced pellet processing technology, LupoMAX elevates hop expression while reducing brew process loss, all without requiring brewers to change their process. Contact your Haas Sales Representative or visit lupohops.com to learn more.
Today's episode is brought to you by stompstickers.com, trusted by thousands of breweries across the country. They've been printing for over 30 years, and they know beer branding inside and out. Whether you need beer labels, keg collars, coasters, beer boxes, or more, they've got the expertise you need, all backed by a 100% satisfaction guarantee. Try your first run with stompstickers.com and get 15% off with code TRY15. That's TRY15 by visiting stompstickers.com. You're paying too much to process your invoices. Look, it's not your fault. It's just because you're not using PaySmart yet. Most breweries are stuck with platforms designed for general small businesses, not the craft industry. That's why PaySmart was built. It's the new payment solution that is fully integrated into leading brewery software like Ecos and Ollie. That means less time chasing payments, fewer workarounds, and more money saved. Want to see how much you can save? Head over to save.withpaysmart.com to learn more and to claim an incredible launch offer. That's save.withpaysmart.com.
If you were at CBC in Philadelphia, hopefully you stopped by the Senos booth or ran into them at their sponsored events around Philly. For everyone who missed it, Senos announced their latest hardware innovations. Senos is the world's first complete solution for data-driven fermentation management. Real-time, predictive insights directly from your tanks, within reach for every brewery. Catch issues early, save batches, and grow your margins. Brew smarter at senos.com. That's SENNOS.com.